On today's episode, we explore the world of the American teenager. What are their hopes? What music do they like to listen to? Why are they always consuming the flesh of the living? The movie is Maggie, the actor is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and we watched it today on Nothing Movies. Hello, however you wish to self-identify, and welcome to Nothing Movies, where we ask the question, the f*** is this? It's the podcast where we go through an actor's filmography and choose 3 of the most anonymous and culturally untalked about movies that they've made, and decide whether or not they've got a certain something, or if they're just a whole lot of nothing. I'm Kaz Lesgard.
And I'm Jameson Rafter.
And today we're terminating
our
trilogy on the Nothing Movies of Arnold Schwarzenegger with 2015's Maggie, a movie that has the guts to ask the question, what if being a zombie were kind of a bummer? Not fun.
Yeah.
Not a good time.
Yeah, go
for
figure.
Anybody.
Go figure. Yeah.
I always assumed.
Yeah, this is one of the more po-faced movies I think we've ever covered on this show. This is very much a film festival movie.
Oh yeah, we've really never talked about a movie like this before over the course of any of our podcasts. It's a movie where not much happens, but we are going to attempt to talk about it nonetheless for about an hour and a half.
Yeah, to kind of give you an idea of what this film is like. You know that scene in every zombie movie where one of the survivors gets bit? And then there's like maybe a page or 2 of dialogue where it's like when it happens, do you think you could pull the trigger and kill your loved ones? It's that scene, but stretched over like a feature film length.
What if that one part of a zombie movie were the entire movie? Well said, Jameson.
Yeah.
Well, that's an excellent review for this particular motion picture.
Well, thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Nothing Movies. Here's what we learned about Arnold Schwarzenegger now. 2015's Maggie, directed by British filmmaker Henry Hobson, who cut his teeth on commercials for Halo 5, PlayStation, Star Wars, and Mobile Strike, and is also a end titles director for movies like Sherlock Holmes, Robin Hood, The Karate Kid, Rango, The Lone Ranger, and the video game The Last of Us. So this is a guy who, when you go to see a movie and then like the credits come up and it's all like directed by Guy Ritchie, and then like maybe there's like a graphic and it's like, written by, that's what he does.
They're all exciting and stylized and everything. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, someone has to direct that shit.
I suppose it does. I just never clued in that it would take like an actual filmmaker to do it. I thought that was just the job of the editor or the graphics department.
Well, you know, the editor isn't editing everything. They're not editing the trailer of the movie. They're not editing the interstitial titles of the movie. They're just working with the bulk of the movie to begin with. And I guess, this is one of the more, I was about to say, one of the more well-known end title directors. Like, who knows? Who knows who else has this job? Who has done this job?
He rolls up in like an Escalade with an entourage and just thinks he's hot shit and he doesn't do any work. And well, what he does is like a lot of the people beneath him do all the work, and then he comes up and like signs up on it, and everyone's like, "Oh, what a genius credits director this guy is."
This is parody. This is parody, folks. We have nothing against Henry Hobson. He's far more successful than either of us probably ever will be. But it's directed by Henry Hobson and it's written by John Scott III. Not John Scott the Third.
Oh, really? I was wondering about that.
John Scott
Cubed.
John Scott Cubed. John Scott the number 3, which makes me think that he's some sort of screenwriting robot or a clone. Yeah. Perhaps the alternate John Scotts didn't quite.
Well, imagine how bad the other John Scotts must have been if this is the one that made a feature film.
This is the best screenplay we got out of the John Scott program. Mm-hmm. You know, it's all like we desperately need an indie zombie drama. Mm-hmm. We gotta make it in a lab. We can't hire someone like out of like film school for this. We gotta get the test tubes out and we gotta get some John DNA and some Scott DNA, and then we go and the first screenplay was too good and the second screenplay wasn't good enough. It's all like it needs to be more. The
third one was just right.
More mediocre.
It's the Three Bears principle. The third one's just right.
Exactly. But that's the movie we're going to talk about. But to fill the time before we try to talk about that movie, Jameson, it's the last episode of our Arnold Schwarzenegger trilogy.
It is, yes.
Yeah. So how are we feeling about that?
about Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, or I thought you meant like about like this process of just covering one actor for over the course of a couple of episodes. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger is, he's just like this mountain of a man with a legacy that like not predates him, but it. Well, you know what? You should have asked. Hey, stop springing these fucking questions on me.
He has a legacy that predates the man himself. People were talking about.
You can't spring these like heady questions on me in the moment. You have to say, "Hey, I'm going to ask you this. Maybe write down some thoughts." And then like, what do you think of Arnold Schwarzenegger now, Jameson?
I literally sprung that question on myself. It came out of my mouth, and I heard the first time I heard myself asking that question is when I was asking you that question. I had no. This was not part of my.
Boy, this is a really loaded question. Thank God I'm not the one answering it first. It's been a long.
I don't feel any different about Arnold Schwarzenegger
Neither
now
do
than
I.
I did when I started.
No.
I don't know where I was going with that, to be quite frank.
Well, apology accepted.
I'm not apologizing.
I will say that it's been a long time since I've actually watched like sequential Arnold Schwarzenegger movies in a row. Like not since maybe my high school days have I marathoned multiple Arnie movies.
Yeah.
He's not really the kind of actor that you would follow per se. You would like maybe just do like a celebratory. It's an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie marathon night sort of thing, right?
Right.
Or an Arnold Schwarzenegger themed party because his status is just a character in himself.
Yes, exactly.
It's like, have you ever seen those pictures of these sororities where every Halloween they pick like one actor and then they dress up as that character?
I mean, I haven't, but I can picture exactly.
Yeah, they have like a Jim
about.
Carrey night. They have a Johnny Depp night, and like they're all dolled up in movie costumes that they're most known for, because that's just the status that this actor and celebrity has risen to, where like the actor themselves has eclipsed the character.
It feels like Arnold Schwarzenegger is both an easy and a hard one to do for that particular college frat thing, because like he's only got a couple of recognizable characters through costume alone. He's got Terminator, which is like the easy look to do. I guess he has Conan, but like there's not really like a like a stereotypical Conan costume. It's just like barbarian stuff.
Sure.
And then everything else in his movies, he's just wearing clothes.
Yeah,
for the most part.
He's a plain clothes guy for the most part.
Except for Mr. Freeze, I guess. But there's the one. That's the one.
So
that's the one frat brother who just kind of goes like he understands
he like wraps
the assignment and
wraps himself in aluminum foil and everything. Yeah, paints his face blue, and then he gets canceled a couple years later when those pictures resurface and blueface is not in the it's not acceptable. Give it time. I really regret my Dr. Manhattan costume from this Halloween.
I never liked the blue people. Anyway, I'm on record saying that. I'm just out here speaking truth. All you bluebies can go home. Gosh. Arnold!
What about him?
What else do we want to talk about? We've watched a very strange trilogy of films.
We have, and yet they all kind of encompass what the things that he's best known for. We covered an action movie. We covered a comedy. He's kind of dabbled in drama a little.
Well, he dabbled in drama with this, is the thing. And this is why I wanted to talk about this movie. And in particular, I want to talk about a very short window of time in Arnold's filmography that encompasses 2015 all the way to 2017, because those were like the years where Arnold was taking a real stab at trying to be a dramatic actor, and he only did it with 2 movies. But it was an exciting time to be an Arnold fan.
Was it?
It was.
Okay.
I remember this point in time in history. I remember when this movie came out, I was excited because this was the Arnold's first crack at like a serious dramatic performance. Yes, it's in a genre movie, but this movie is a zombie movie second and a independent drama.
A distant
first.
Second is
a distant second to the zombie part of it. I remember the trailers were coming out, and I was really sort of intrigued to see how he was going to handle it. And the answer to that question ended up being, I have some thoughts. I have some thoughts on Arnold's performance, but what else? So, 2015, he has Maggie, which comes and goes with absolutely no fanfare.
Well, it's funny because we like to spotlight movies that a lot of people may not have heard of, or like forgotten films, movies that no one's really talking about. And yet, I think a lot of people have heard of Maggie.
You think?
I think so. Like you're certainly right on the money when you say like no one's talking about a movie like this.
Yes.
I don't think too many people even have seen this movie, but I think this is fairly well known. This has like some kind of clout in the film festival scene. This was sort of heralded as Arnold's first go at doing dramatic roles,
and it got some decent reviews. There are some people who said some nice things about Arnold's performance in this movie,
particularly Arnold's performance, because the rest of the movie is a little it kind of drags a little.
Yeah, that's fair to say. Yeah. Look, there's a difference between talking about something like The Villain and talking about something like this and talking about Iron Mask in the sense that those last two ones came out, in the age of the internet. So any movie that comes out after a certain point of time is never truly going to be a forgotten film. So yeah, I agree with you. There are people that know that Maggie existed. There might even be people who genuinely love this movie.
I can't see it myself.
I don't know. I mean, like, there are so many people out there. There's so many differing tastes in films.
But I think that this is probably one of the more well-known movies that we've ever covered on the myriad of podcasts that we've had over the years.
Yes, definitely. And this will come up time and time again when we pick certain actors to look at. Inevitably, what's going to happen is we'll get sort of like the triptych of films where maybe two of them are completely buried, no one's ever seen them, no one's ever commented on them, and then the third one will be kind of sort of known. Just because, like, not every actor's filmography has the same
nosedive.
Yeah, nosedives and flits and starts that they do. Arnold, ultimately looking at his career, because we looked at his filmography, and the number of nothing movies that he's in are far outweighed by the number of movies that
are like
have some cultural significance to them.
Yeah, exactly.
So 2015, he does Maggie. Then he takes a break for a year, and then 2017 is the really interesting year. And I toyed with the idea for a while of us doing an episode on two movies. I either wanted to lump Maggie in with another movie, or I wanted to see if we could do an episode basically on the year of 2017 alone. Because 2017, he came out with two movies that I remember watching them in 2017, and even in the year of 2017, no one was talking about these. They weren't on anyone's radar. They kind of just came and went, and it's odd because they are Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, and it was the real first instance of noting that maybe his star really has
lost its luster.
People just aren't interested in these interesting sort of avenues that he's doing now. So 2017, he has two movies. He has another straight drama, even more of a drama than Maggie, because it doesn't have any fantastical sci-fi elements. He has a drama called Aftermath, which is a movie where he, again, plays a grieving father whose family dies in a plane crash, and he tries to get revenge on the air traffic controller who caused the accident, played by the great Scoot McNairy, who, right before the episode we were talking, you were...
I was just wondering
singing your praises for Scoot.
I was just wondering, I wonder if he's ever considered changing his name to Scott.
As I pointed out, there are many Scotts. There's even a Skeet.
Yeah.
There are no Scoots.
But I love Scoot McNairy. I think he's a fantastic actor. I've liked everything I've ever seen him in, be it like True Detective, Halt and Catch Fire, even Dawn of Justice. He was good in that.
Sure, why not? Yep. Yeah. And then the other movie he did in 2017 was a comedy called Killing Gunther. Which was written and directed by Saturday Night Live alum Taran Killam.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah. And this was a hitman comedy that was sort of like a mockumentary that was Taran Killam. He also plays one of the main characters. And I believe Kobe Smulders is also in it. Bobby Moynihan is also in it. And it's sort of like a mockumentary in the Christopher Guest style about a bunch of assassins who aren't getting any of their jobs because the world's greatest assassin of all time, Gunther, of course played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, has taken all of their jobs. So it's them getting together and it's all like, let's kill Gunther. And Arnold doesn't come in until, I think, like the last 20 minutes or something. But then when he's on screen, he kind of steals the movie from everyone.
Sure.
I remember watching both of those movies in 2017 when they came out because I was interested in these nothing Arnold movies that were out no one were talking about.
And you didn't have a podcast back then.
And I didn't have a podcast to talk about that, yeah. So we're not really covering those movies, but we should maybe mention them just in the sense that there's this weird dead time for Arnold about 5 years ago where he was making interesting choices that didn't quite work. You said you watched about 10 minutes of Aftermath.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you glean anything from that?
I thought it looked... I'll be honest with you, Cass. You had originally suggested, like, hey, do you want to watch Maggie and Aftermath and have a discussion on both? I hemmed and hawed on and said, let's just watch Maggie. And then, for shits and giggles, I put on the 10 minutes of Aftermath just to see what that was all about. I kind of wish we were talking about Aftermath because, well, at least in the first 20 or so minutes of it, it looked a little pretentious to me and a little hokey, and I thought that would be better suited for our comedy podcast to mine some humor out of. However, then I found out it's based on an actual true story, and I can't in good conscience make fun of something that's based on a real-life tragedy. At least not at this stage in my podcasting career.
Right, yeah, exactly. Which is why we still haven't done an episode on the Charlie Sheen movie 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to combine two movies because, A, it was kind of interesting to talk about this section of Arnie in 2017 when nothing was really happening. And also I thought we could combine Maggie and Aftermath together because they were the dramatic Arnie performances that kind of went nowhere, that were two movies where... there's just not much to fucking say. So I thought we could talk about both. But we didn't do that. We chose to talk about Maggie.
We did.
So have we killed enough time? But we have been teasing for a while that we were going to talk about what's next for Arnold.
His next couple of movies.
What he's been working on.
Yeah. Well, we're closing in on the 20-minute mark, so let's get this out of the way as quickly as we can.
It won't take very long because he doesn't have like a ton coming up. The thing that he's currently working on right now, it turns out, of course... I don't know how I couldn't have mentioned this before. Of course, he is the voice of Captain Courage in Stan Lee's Superhero Kindergarten.
Okay.
Which is an animated show. Mm-hmm. Not the first time that Arnold has attempted to get himself into an animated show. Do you remember, super briefly, there was just a short cartoon, like a short opening sequence to a proposed Arnold animated show that was going to debut as soon as he left office from being the governor of California.
Yeah.
It was called The Governator. And it was him and a team of super kids that might have been like his pretend cartoon family or whatnot. He was like governor superhero. He had like spy gadgets and stuff. This was like a thing that existed and was going to go into production for a while. The thing that derailed it, of course, is the real life fact of Arnold cheating on his wife with the nanny.
I see.
And then people, I guess, decided, well, we can't have a cartoon with Arnold in it.
You know what?
6 years later, here we are. And he's literally teaching preschoolers.
Yeah, time heals all wounds. You know what? That premise sounds like that's how it originally began. But then as the years went on, it was in production hell. But then as things got retooled, it eventually became Mike Tyson Mysteries. Because that does seem like something that, like, Adult Swim would put out eventually. Like, make a one-season series.
Based on what I'm remembering, the opening title sequence for it was very sincere. I don't know if Arnold has the same kind of, like, ironic detachment about himself that Mike Tyson has.
Yeah, there was a part when I was watching Maggie where I was imagining myself at maybe an after party or a screening, and I thought like maybe I would just hey, like a gentle ribbing to Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Sure, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, good idea.
He
on my
would
part, yeah.
love that. He would be so receptive to that.
But then I thought to myself, I can't think of any time where like Arnold, he has that kind of ironic sense of self-awareness about himself in the way that Bruce Campbell's cool with poking fun at himself, or like, well, no, but where like William Shatner's cool with poking fun at, well, no,
not really, no.
Well, like, what celebrity does have a good sense of humor about themselves?
I don't know, Ryan Reynolds?
Ryan Reynolds, yeah, I guess. Fuck.
Vin Diesel? No.
I know. The Rock, mate? No. Some wrestler.
We'll circle back to this.
Some wrestlers, I think, have a good sense of humor about themselves and what they do.
Yeah, so that's what he's currently working on right now. Some kindergarten superhero comedy that also inexplicably has Stan Lee's name attached to it. I don't know. I'm sure in it.
That doddering old fool.
I'm sure in like his like waning last days, they got him to just like move a pen across paper to like green light 15 TV shows that he wasn't even aware that he's attached to.
What was it like the last last 6 or whatever of his movie cameos were all shot in the same day by the
Yeah, because
same
they
director.
they didn't know that how much time they had left. So like, we gotta get these. Yeah, they actually are sitting on like a ton more Stan Lee cameos. They're not even talking about. It's like how Prince had like recording equipment in every room in his house, and he was just constantly making songs every single minute of the day.
Oh man!
Like someone was just following Stan Lee around with a camera while he was just taking his medication, or like in like Ant-Man 3, there'll just be like a shot of like Stan Lee drinking Metamucil, and it's like he didn't even know he was being filmed.
You know, there is going to be that point somewhere down the line, and I really hope they don't do this, but I wouldn't put it past them, where there's just going to be a deep fake of Stan Lee and like an AI voice algorithm that gets him to say anything, and it's just going to be so disrespectful.
And they've already fucking done it. They've already fucking got there. There's deep fakes in popping up all over the place. You know, fucking Mark Hamill's back into looking how he did in 1983 and fucking Book of Boba Fett. Bruce Willis recently was on a Russian commercial. Red Letter Media told us that, where he was in the Russian commercial where it was just a deep fake. So like Bruce Willis is in Russian commercials. He didn't even leave his house. He did nothing. He did shit. So like it's starting. It's beginning anew. Fucking Ghost Harold Ramis pops up in that depressing new Ghostbusters movie. Yeah, give it time. That's where it's going. Actors are becoming obsolete.
What was that thing I heard like a little while ago when they were interviewing Kevin Feige? Are you ever thinking about like recasting Captain America and then Iron Man? It says, I don't think you could ever. It's not like a James Bond role. You can never replace Robert Downey Jr. And I thought like, okay, that's pretty good. They're gonna leave that as it is. But now that I'm thinking about it is, you're not gonna recast him. You're just gonna use deepfakes on somebody else.
Use that shit. Yeah. I mean, the more alarming question is, what are you planning on doing to recast Chadwick Boseman? And that's the real avenue that you want to be careful when you're like wading into and everything. Is all like, I'd be fine with a deepfake Robert Downey Jr. Like, sure, like why not? Because someone is alive and like benefiting off of that. But you know, leave the dead actors alone. That's where I kind of have issues.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you there.
So what else has he got going on? He has like a bunch of TV shows apparently that are in some stage of development, so maybe Arnold's just realizing streaming is the future and stuff, so he's got like his fingers in a couple of different pies. He has one show in production called UTAP. I don't know what the fuck that means. A spy adventure with a father and daughter at the center of the story. That's one thing he's attached to. He's attached to another TV show called Outrider, which is a western. His first western since the villain.
Yeah. It's been long enough that he's like dipping his toe back in that water. He's like, Al Needham's not involved in this, is he? No. Okay.
He's been dead for a while, Arnold. He's been dead for a while.
You sure?
He always comes back. A deputy teams up with a ruthless marshal to track down the legendary outlaw. See, like, none of these are shows at this point. They're all just like log lines. There's no information about any of these yet.
In development.
He has a third TV show in development just called Pump. I'm a little concerned as to what that might be.
Because it might just bring back his old quote about coming during the gym.
Obviously, with a TV show called Pump, it probably is about bodybuilding.
Let's go for the hat trick. Play the audio.
That's his version. Oh, God. I wasn't going to bring it up, but you know what? Here we go.
It's a satisfying to me as coming is, as having sex with a woman and coming. So can you believe how much I am in heaven? I'm like getting the feeling of coming in the gym. I'm getting the feeling of coming at home. I'm getting the feeling of coming backstage when I pump up, when I pose out in front of 5,000 people. I get the same feeling. So I'm coming day and night. I mean, that's terrific, right? So, I'm in heaven.
Every episode.
It's our signature at this point.
Yeah. And then, as I mentioned before, long in development sequels, The Legend of Conan and Triplets apparently might get made at some point.
I hope not. I really hope not.
But the movie that he's got the most in development...
More in development than any other.
In the sense that it actually might come out this year. Okay. Did you ever watch Kung Fury?
Oh, was that whole green screen 80s throwback
thing?
Yeah.
It was like a 30-minute movie.
Well, it was like a 10-minute YouTube short, and then they kickstarted that to like fucking $30 million and just made that sort of like 30-minute gag. Yeah,
well,
I see
even more money and even longer is what they're throwing at for Kung Fury 2.
Oh, no.
Which Arnold is set to star as, what else? The President. There's only one set photo so far, and of course, it is Arnold as the President. With a placard that just says, The President.
He was already the President in the Simpsons movie.
Yes, but
it was Rainier Wolfcastle.
It was Rainier Wolf. Okay, sidebar. That was the weirdest fucking joke in that movie.
Yeah.
Because it was just Rainer Wolfcastle, but it was Rainer Wolfcastle playing Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well,
and he looked kind of odd, but like it was obviously just Rainer Wolf. I don't know.
Yeah.
That movie, like with every passing year, that movie becomes stranger and stranger.
It had a lot of good humor in it, but just a lot of creative decisions. Like, why not make like a long-standing Simpsons bad guy the villain? Why not make it Mr. Burns? Why not make it Sideshow Bob? You know, why invent this new guy? Also voiced by
Albert
Al
Brooks.
Brooks, and he played Hank Scorpio. He's a fantastic villain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back, you know?
And it's on paper, bringing Albert Brooks to voice the villain of the Simpsons movie sounds great. You didn't give him anything to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't remember anything. I don't even remember the character's name. I remember the character's name. The character's name is Russ Cargill. It's because my brain is broken and I can fucking remember these things.
Homer's like lost in the woods and he gets revived by like this Native American woman who gives him the
big
courage.
boobas lady.
Yeah, who gives him the courage to go back and save the town. Why not make it his mother? You know, there's a nice through line there from like his estranged missing mother.
Is she not canonically dead?
Is she?
I think
last I remember
she definitely died in the series. I don't know if that happened before or after the movie.
The last I saw of her is they had the tearful goodbye where she gets into the electric bus and drives off to the underground. That's a beautiful.
Oh, you're talking about
that's a beautiful episode.
Well, they've brought her back for like a couple of episodes, and she always has to like go again. But there's definitely an episode where she canonically dies. And there's no emotional weight to it because The Simpsons has stopped meaning anything for the past like 10 years or something.
I'm one of those Simpsons hipsters that hasn't watched since like season 13.
Simpsters?
Sure.
That doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound like someone you want to be. Yeah. But Kung Fury 2 is Arnold's next movie. It is from the same guy who made the first 30-minute movie. It also inexplicably stars Michael Fassbender as Colt Magnum.
Oh, that poor guy.
So it's like, Michael Fassbender's career isn't doing that bad. I guess he's just like a big fan of like the 30-minute things. So
I just think,
so this is going to be like,
he's a great actor and he just can't seem to catch a break outside of playing young Magneto. You know, everything else he's in is
Michael Fassbender. Michael Fassbender has had a bad run of films for quite a while. Yeah,
he's a great actor.
Yeah. Hey, maybe we'll cover him on the podcast one day. Names going in the jar.
Hell, if he's going to be in Kung Fury 2, I bet we can get him on the show.
I don't think things are that bad for multiple Academy Award nominee Michael Fassbender, but there we go. That's what we have to look forward to for coming out for Arnold. Not much.
Yeah.
He really doesn't have anything else to do. Well, we're at 30 minutes, so let's take a total P call. The last total P call of this.
We'll talk about Maggie. Lucky you.
We'll finally talk about Maggie, so stay tuned. Today's charity shout-out is for the Marsha P. Johnson Institute. Here is their mission statement in their own words. Marsha P. Johnson was an activist, self-identified drag queen, performer, and survivor. She was a prominent figure of the Stonewall Uprising of 1969. Marsha went by Black Marsha before settling on Marsha P. Johnson. The P stood for Pay It No Mind, which is what Marsha would say in response to questions about her gender. So much of our understanding of Marsha came from the accounts of people who didn't look like her or come from the same place as her. As transness becomes more accessible to the world, Black trans people are still currently grappling with survival and looking for a community. The Marsha P. Johnson Institute protects and defends the human rights of Black transgender people. They do this by organizing, advocating, and creating a community to heal, develop transformational leadership, and promoting their collective power. By reclaiming Marsha P. Johnson and her legacy, the Institute is reclaiming autonomy of their minds, bodies, and futures. The organization was founded as a response to the murders of Black trans women and women of color, and how that is connected to their exclusion from social justice issues such as gun violence, as well as racial, gender, and reproductive justice. To donate to the Marsha P. Johnson Institute, and to sign their petition to pass the Equality Act, visit marshap.org/donate. You can also find that link in our episode description. And we're back.
We said we'd be back.
We said
and
we
we're
would
back.
be. We've been returning I don't fucking know.
Wasn't that a Michael Scott line? He comes back into the office, he's like, I'll be back, and I am back. Yeah, and that's the kind of reaction everybody in the office gave him.
Yeah, and that's the same reaction everyone in the audience had for the opening night of Maggie. They all walked out into the theater, and they all said, yep.
Well, you know,
that happened.
It's interesting because a story like this, it ought to be told. You know, the story of, let's treat a zombie not so much as an outbreak, but as a gradual, stretched out death where it will take weeks for the turn to actually happen. And, you know, what does that really do for people? This is more or less what it's like when a family member has like a debilitating, fatal illness, what that does to the family, what that does to the individual, the motions of going through that. So, yes, it's a good, I wouldn't say it's a good idea, but it's a story that is there. It would exist. It's not terribly exciting, and the drama that unfolds is not, you wouldn't see anywhere else.
Right.
Those are my thoughts for it.
It's kind of the first zombie movie that is entirely about what would happen to the family members of a zombie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more interested in the fallout of, as you say, the infection itself, rather than the bigger issues of what a zombie outbreak would be.
Mm-hmm.
This is a movie that is not remotely interested in that type of stuff. We don't know what caused the zombie outbreak. We don't know how the structure of the world is holding up. We don't really ever leave the one location that this movie takes place in.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of other smaller locations, but for the most part, this entire movie takes place in the one farmhouse.
Yeah.
And it isn't terribly interested. We hear some snippets of news reports, but it's very vague, it's very window dressing.
Yeah, the movie goes out of its way multiple times where characters will say, we know a lot about the virus except how to cure it. You know, like, okay, well, this is going to spread, and this way the victims are going to start feeling these sensations, they're going to start losing these capabilities. There's like offhanded mentions on the radio of things like people believe that it's being spread through food, that's why a lot of the farmers are burning their crops intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's giving us like the barest of background information on this stuff. Just enough to like sort of say, okay, it's a zombie apocalypse. Be aware of that, but this is the story we're telling.
Right, and I understand that. There have been enough zombie apocalypse movies. Lord knows there have been enough zombie apocalypse movies at this point that we don't necessarily need all of them to explain why this is currently happening. It's just in a movie like this where it's not a long movie.
No.
It's like a tight hour and a half, but amazingly it still feels a little undercooked.
A little empty, yeah.
And so much of its runtime is the reactions of the characters.
Yeah.
And it's just really setting a mood. And the mood is just one of
dourness.
Yeah, dourness
solemn,
and like aggressive despair.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a movie that deals with the fallout of slowly losing someone to a disease that turns them into something that they weren't anymore, that turns them into a ghoul and a monster. It's just at about the 35-minute mark, I just found myself saying, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. This is bad. This is a bad thing. This is a bad situation. It's sad for everyone, and my heart breaks for these people.
Yeah.
And then the movie keeps going, and it doesn't really have a point other than that.
Yeah.
Other than if your teenage daughter got bit by a zombie and slowly turned into a zombie, that would be bad and would make you sad. That's kind of the whole point of this movie.
Yeah.
And I got it. I got it early on, and it never really told me anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, for the amount of zombie movies that there are, the decision was clearly made that this is, you know, it's not the rage virus type of zombie where there is like this global mad panic of survivalists. This is a very matter of fact, okay, well, someone's going to slowly transform into the Romero slow-moving zombie. So it is like a very grounded, even-tempoed experience for everyone involved.
These are pretty...
Just not terribly exciting.
No.
And it doesn't have to be, this movie's not trying to be exciting.
No.
But there's a couple of things that I think as a independent film, it is intentionally veering away from, because that's not the kind of story it wants to tell. But as a movie-going experience, there's a few things that could have subletted into it to have at least give it the movie a little more attention, because right now it's just a sad slog.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not going to make for a funny fucking episode.
No, this is as we've said, this is far different from everything else that we've talked about before, but this is the new detour that we decided to take with this podcast, was to just talk about hey, you signed off. You signed off on the thing. They are fairly unique zombies in terms of the cinematic zombie. They did try to go out of their way to try and create something kind of unique. With this, there's a big emphasis on the color black. These are very goopy zombies. They're very kind of slimy and clammy and pale. It seems like their blood turns black, and then their veins are kind of illuminated by their pale skin, and so they have these black veins going throughout
all
their
sinewy
skin.
And everything,
kind of drooly, and their eyes get all
glassy,
milky and white
before they also go pitch black.
And in terms of how these zombies react, we actually don't see a ton of zombies. We only see maybe about like 4 or 5, not counting Maggie herself.
This movie pinches its fucking pennies in a good way. You know, they're not doing the entire field crawling with 30 or more townsfolk shambling towards the farmhouse. At most, we see maybe 4 zombies in the entire movie.
This was the lowest budgeted movie that Arnold has made since the first Terminator. Do you want to take a guess, if you haven't looked this up already?
I looked it up.
You looked it up already, the amount of money that Arnold was paid to do this movie.
$0.
It's a big goose egg. Arnold read this script and he was so into it, he made this movie for free.
Why?
Because he was just so... Because no one had ever asked him to do a movie like this before. No one has ever asked Arnold Schwarzenegger to play a role like this before. I mean, he's played lots of fathers, and he's played protective fathers.
Right.
You know, like Commando, True Lies, stuff like that comes to mind, but he's in action mode.
Jingle All the Way.
Exactly. He's protecting his son from the evils
the loss of a bad Christmas.
The evils of capitalism and the sadistic Sinbad.
Bad's in the name. Sin is in the name.
Wow. He should play more villains.
Yeah, I'm surprised like that's not the name of like a fucking Final Fantasy villain at this point. Sinbad.
Yeah, but Maggie, it is...
Something about that script really leapt out at him, and I don't really know why, and the movie doesn't... It's not catering to any of his strengths, and you could probably sublet any actor for, Schwarzenegger character.
Yeah, I appreciate the casting of Arnold in this. I think it was a big swing. I think Henry Hobson, the director, was thinking this is like smart casting because Arnold is a very paternal figure. You buy that he wants to protect his family at all costs. And it's kind of interesting seeing him in this character because he's a father who wants to protect his family, but this movie takes place after he has failed at that. And he's just continuing to live in the failure.
Yeah.
The long death of his daughter that hasn't happened yet.
Let's make her final days comfortable kind of thing.
But he is miscast, I would say, in other aspects of the movie. In particular, so there's a moment in this movie where Arnold comes across his neighbor and his neighbor's daughter who have turned into zombies.
Yeah.
His wife not Arnold's wife, the neighbor wife.
The neighbor wife has kept her daughter and her husband locked in the house, like separate from her, because, in these stories, you don't want to kill your loved ones.
Mirroring what Arnold is doing himself with his daughter, except she's not as far along as them. Yeah. But it's a mirror because he can see this is eventually what will happen with Maggie if I don't decide to do something.
Yeah. So they escape their house, they cross into Arnold's property, and Arnold has to take a hatchet to both of them. Finish your point, but that's just what happens.
My point is that after he kills his neighbors, he calls the cops. The cops come.
Good cop, bad cop.
Literally good cop, bad cop.
One cop wants to just haul away all these fucking zombies to the quarantine area where they are sure to meet like a quick death. And the other cop, the chief of police, whatever, old friend of Arnold's, he's sympathetic to him, and he says, like, I see what you're doing here, I'll give you all the space. Just know I think this is a bad idea, but I trust you to make your decisions.
It's a fairly basic screenplay in terms of characterization, but there's a moment where the good cop is kind of like calming Arnold down, and he's saying, it's all like, you did what you had to do, something like that. That would be like too much on any man to handle, so, don't let it like eat at you, like you did what you had to do. The problem is that he's talking to Arnold fucking Schwarzenegger. A man who is maybe like one of the biggest cinematic mass murderers in history. Like, if you watch an Arnold movie and he doesn't kill someone, you're surprised.
Yeah.
So, like, we as an audience member...
What are you talking? We watched 2 Arnold Schwarzenegger movies recently where he doesn't kill anybody.
That is true. And we were surprised by it.
Yeah, we were surprised by a lot of things in those movies.
I think he even manages to kill someone in Kindergarten Cop. I don't know. I haven't seen that movie in a while, but I think he might shoot the bad guy at the end of that. But, like, we as an audience have no problem imagining Arnold Schwarzenegger killing zombies.
Mm-hmm.
So to cast him as the all-American farmer everyman, even though he does have...
a bit of a stretch.
even though this movie does have the good sense to give him a European last name. His name's Wade Vogel, and that is all like, okay, well that's not an American name. He's not like Chet Masters. I don't know why that was the first name that came to my mind.
But it sounds like a role he would have played in the earlier days.
We have no... And we see him kill a zombie earlier when he's looking for Maggie when they're at the gas station and he finds like the zombie in the back room, and he kind of takes care of that zombie, no problem. And you have the cop character saying it's all like, it's all right, man, you had to do what you had to do, and we're just sitting there and we're going, it doesn't look like it bothers him that much.
Funny thing about that gas station zombie kill, first of all, like, all the shelves are still stocked in that gas station. We're seeing that most of society is broken down. I guarantee you most of those shelves would have been cleared in this event.
I mean, that is a stereotype that you see in a lot of post-apocalyptic stuff. Like, you have to have, like, one scene of a character going up to a deserted grocery store. I'm thinking, like, A Quiet Place and stuff like that, and they always find, like, some things to take back to their little hovel. But, yeah, no, in reality, it would be cleared out. Like, they would be taking everything. Even the products that no one wants would be taken by that point.
But also, this is probably the first zombie movie I've ever seen where a zombie is killed by a neck break. Arnold Schwarzenegger goes up to him and he's got like a 2x4 with him.
Yeah, he just kind of like chokes him out.
Yeah, he chokes him out and then he snaps the neck. And I've never seen a zombie die by anything other than like decapitation or getting crushed by a car.
Well, again, this isn't a movie that's terribly interested in world building. It doesn't really want you to know too much about the undead. It's kind of telling you a couple of different things, and it sort of, I guess, reflecting the situation that the characters find themselves in, because they don't know much about the infected.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of going from place to place at this moment. But, like, this movie is kind of frustratingly vague. Even from the very beginning, something that I wanted a little more illumination on is that the movie begins, Maggie has already been bitten, and we find out throughout the course of the movie that Wade has been looking for her for about 2 weeks.
Yeah, she ran away from home.
Yes,
yeah.
But why? That's something that the movie never explains. What was their situation beforehand? Why did she run away from home? Why did she run away from home in the middle of a zombie apocalypse?
So, 2 thoughts came to mind, and they sort of, like, these details reveal themselves throughout the movie. One is that, even though Arnold Schwarzenegger is married, Maggie is his daughter from a previous marriage.
Yes.
So, like, Maggie's mother had died, and now they're living with Caroline, and her 2 kids that she might have had with Arnold.
Yeah, well, those are Arnold's kids as well.
As well, yeah. So throughout the movie, there's a lot of tension actually between Caroline having Maggie back at the farmhouse. You know, she doesn't like looking at Maggie's wounds. There's always like sort of like a hands-off approach, at least in the early scenes when she's back. So maybe there was just some low-lying tension that was always there between her and Caroline. The other thing, though, is later on in the movie, we established that Maggie has had a boyfriend, and I guess they snuck out together and hooked up. Maybe there was a clash between the parents and an argument, and that's what made her run off.
Yeah, but these are all assumptions.
They're
assumptions. They're good assumptions, but like the movie isn't interested in letting us know. We just know that for some reason Maggie ran away to the city where she got bit by a zombie, and somehow Wade managed to find her and bring her home. And that's how the movie begins with them. Well, it begins with Wade going to the hospital and finding Maggie there, because presumably the hospital contacted him to let him know that she was there finally.
And through the interventions of Dr. Vern, he's permitting Maggie to go home with Arnold Schwarzenegger and not be swept away to the quarantine area.
Right.
And we don't even know who this Dr. Vern character is, and then
until about halfway through.
And then it's like, oh, he's like the
he's like a family friend.
Yeah, he's a family friend.
Maggie is friends with his daughter.
Yeah, so
small town America, everyone knows everyone. Arnold goes way back with the chief of police or whatever. Everyone's connected.
But this small town doctor has enough sway to, like, circumvent the protocol of taking her to quarantine.
Well, for white families, he does.
Okay.
It has to be said that, unfortunately, a movie like this does feel eerily prescient in COVID times. Like with everyone talking about quarantine, with everyone talking about distance and enforcing martial law in like an area and everything.
Oh, I mean, all the cops in this movie are like jackbooted with the riot gear and their like face covering masks and everything that obscure their mouths. And I'm just thinking, this is the anti-vaxxer nightmare. Like the government interest. Maybe we should not.
Now who's getting political on the show? But yeah, there, like we see like an entire SWAT team come to a house. They break down the door. They have the full riot gear on. And it's just to pick up one teenage boy, so, and there's definitely something that sort of like reflects how society is currently right now, today. The amount of force that we throw at a problem that on its surface seems fairly innocent. Now, he's an infected boy, and the more he gets infected, the more he's going to spread the disease. Yeah, I understand it.
And it's an inevitability. This is going to happen. There's no cure. There's no way of turning this. This is what is going to happen. So, there is that contingency of people who are being the realists of the situation and saying, we got to get these fucking people out of here. Like, they're not they're not going to be your loved ones anymore. It's a fucking hard pill to swallow, and I don't know what I'd fucking do in a situation like that. I know what the rational part of me would want to do, and I know what the emotional part of me would want to do.
And there is a movie in that idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really frustrating, as with movies that don't always necessarily work when you watch them. I know I do this. I think about how this movie could have worked.
Yeah, me too.
I'm interested to hear what you want to say, but like, I feel like for me, this could have benefited because it's such a dour movie, it could have benefited with a few little drops of levity here and there. And I think this might be, like, kind of interesting. Not actually directed by this person, but imagine if this script or this storyline were kind of adapted by someone like Wes Anderson. Like, not as arch and like stylized as he does, but just kind of with a little more quirk, and a little more reflecting on the absurdity of the situation, finding more things to relate to.
It's not that kind of movie. This is more in the vein of a Children of Men, like end of the world. But at least in Children of Men, there are moments where things pick up, where there is like a moment of tension and action.
Yeah, even. That movie's dour tone is levied by the fact that there are these intense action sequences. There's no levity in Children of Men, but that story doesn't need any levity. No. But there are moments where I'm a little more engaged by what's happening.
Right. So, at least for what I would have liked to have seen is, so there's the tension between Arnold's relationship with the good cop and the bad cop. Good cop is obviously the one calling the shots. He's like the sheriff or whatever.
Yeah.
So let's incapacitate him. Let's either have him die by freak accident, or like he's taken off the board.
Right.
And
right.
the bad cop, who has like he's the second most senior guy in the force. Now he's elevated to sheriff. Now he's calling the shots. Now he's coming for
Maggie. Yeah.
So now Arnold, he's on a getaway, and he's having like these standoff with the cops. That's what I would.
I think you've hit on the thing that maybe is this movie's biggest fault, is that it desperately needs to get away from that fucking farmhouse.
Yeah, and it's establishing all these characters, and they're not really doing anything with most of them.
Yeah. There's not a ton of characters in this. We've kind of mentioned most of them. As you said, Arnold has another family. He has another young daughter and a young son, Maggie's siblings, who are sent off to their aunt early on. And then the bulk of the movie is sitting at home with Maggie and her stepmother, Caroline.
And with the point of like, oh, let's just like try to make her last days comfortable. Let's enjoy the time that we have together. It looks like they're having a boring fucking time. They're not playing games. They're not like, watching their favorite movies. They're not like going fishing or anything. Like, it just like we're bringing you back home to die here, but we're going to make it as depressing as possible.
Like, yeah, like I get that the world has shut down town and
like,
the world's
Maggie at this point was like, oh, just take me to fucking quarantine already. Like, this place sucks. Like, I ran away from this farm for a reason.
I mean, that is the other problem, is that we're just gonna make Maggie's, like, last couple of days as enjoyable for her as possible. The other problem is that, of course, she's a mopey teenager, so she doesn't want to have any fun.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to do anything.
The only thing to do on that farm is, like, there's a swing set. Like, what's a fucking teenager gonna do with a swing set?
Fall off and break her finger, it would appear.
Yeah.
Just what an odd scene. So we haven't mentioned, we've only mentioned Arnold Schwarzenegger. The two other actors of note in this, of course, is the titular Maggie is played by Academy Award nominee Abigail Breslin.
Yeah.
In her second zombie movie following Zombieland.
Mm-hmm.
So she's actually playing the zombie this time.
Right.
And then Caroline is played by Jolie Richardson with her flawless southern accent. Can't you just tell I'm a good down home girl from the ranch? Yeehaw! Let's fry up some grits. I'm not part of one of the great British acting dynasties. Nope. I'm just regular old Southern girl. I don't know why I'm harping on her accent so much, because I gotta harp on something in this movie.
You're getting really nervous talking about it, because, like, much like she's nervous about doing her Southern accent, just comes and goes as it pleases.
And they're both excellent. I mean, Abigail Breslin is very good in this movie. I mean, she's kind of more of the main character than Arnold is. I mean, the movie's named after her. Arnold disappears for like 20 minutes of this
there was
movie.
a couple of points where I was like, where the fuck is Arnold? Where did he go?
Yeah, he doesn't go to do anything. He's not like, I'm going to go check on your brother and sister or anything. There's just like a good chunk of the movie that he's just not in.
No, his whole like role in the movie is relegated to picking Maggie up from the city, driving her home, chopping wood, going into the wood.
Chopping a lot of wood. Arnold's chopping a lot of wood in this movie,
Yeah, having, like, the standoff with the cops. Well, like, no, like, not the standoff, just, like, you know...
He has, like, a tussle. He has to tussle with that cop.
He has a tussle, which is a bad call on that guy's part. Arnold Schwarzenegger still has, like, fucking 200 pounds on him.
Yeah, it's still Arnold Schwarzenegger, yeah.
Yeah.
After he kills the neighbors, he goes to check out their house. He sees...
Why did he go to check out their house?
Because the movie needed to fill up its runtime. Why is anything going on,
What the fuck is he doing at that place? He's crossing the police line.
This is the big problem with the movie, is that, like, when it doesn't know what to do, there's maybe enough plot here for like a 30-45 minute movie, and the rest of it is just
a short film.
A short film. This would be like an interesting short film, and it might be a little more effective as a short film. But the movie fills out its runtime just with atmosphere. Okay, so here's this series of events. So Arnold kills the neighbor and his daughter, and we find out that the neighbor wife, Bonnie, had been keeping them in the house even though they were both fully zombified, and they got out, and now no one can find Bonnie. Later that night, Bonnie...
Yeah, within like 5 minutes of mentioning that Bonnie can't be found.
This is like a whole thing. Yeah. She just drives up to the Vogel house. She's sitting on their porch. She has a handgun. Wade comes out. He's all like, hi, Bonnie. It's unspoken between the two of them. She's like, I know you killed my family.
Take me to where you killed them.
Yeah. But like before that, she's just saying the most obvious stuff. It's all like, he went in to check on her, he didn't come out. It's just
he
like...
locked himself in her bedroom to keep...
It's like, Bonnie, we're very sad, we're very, very sad, we're very sorry that this all happened. We know all of this already. You don't need to explain to us what happened. And then she's like, go take me to where their bodies are. And then Arnold leads them out to the woods where the bodies are, because the police are coming in the morning to take the bodies away. She cocks the gun, or there's like a brief moment where Arnold's like, oh, I'm gonna get shot. And then she just drops the gun, she just cries. And then the next morning...
She's arrested.
For
either trespassing or harboring zombies.
Because she broke the quarantine or whatever. But like, this is my question. This is what raises the question. Are there courts in this world? Like, how long is she going to stay in jail? What does this woman even have left at this point? Like, you know, it's like, these are interesting questions that the movie does not answer. And then after that long sequence where we see Bonnie, you know, get into the handcuffs, go into the car, we see every minute of it. Wade wanders over to her house. He goes into the room. He sees, again, the really obvious stuff that has been scrawled onto the wall, like, I love my daughter, I love my family, and everything. And then...
he tears up.
A single manly tear falls from his eye, but it's so obviously just eye drops.
Yeah.
It's so obviously...
Not a real Arnold.
Not real moisture coming from Arnold's face, because...
Because only the girly men cry, and I do not cry.
Well, but also, look...
It absorbs itself right back into his eye, like that, you know?
like the cop from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Oh, sure.
Did you see his
No,
all
I
like,
didn't.
it's enough to make a man cry, but not this man. Get back in there, to you. And then he goes back in. Yeah, it's like, look, I'm not saying that with enough time and enough effort, you couldn't get Arnold Schwarzenegger to cry on camera.
Sure.
But nothing in this movie doesn't show us the build-up to Wade losing his shit.
No.
You know, because Arnold isn't that type of actor.
Mm-hmm. No, he's not going to break down on the sort of thing. Like, the moments of true emotion that he has with Maggie, they're fondly remembering, like, the times when their mom was alive. He's joking around with her.
Maybe my favorite part of the movie.
Talking about, like, how great his wife's legs were.
Yeah.
Until the day, I still don't know what she saw in me. Because she had everything. She was smart, beautiful, and she had those long legs.
Okay, Dad, thank you.
What?
When he's just talking to Maggie, and they're just kind of like reminiscing on their mom, and they're joking about like the old beat up truck that he has and everything, it's all like, this is kind of the only time that this movie kind of works, and I kind of buy Arnold in this role.
Well, it's also the Arnold that I recognize, because he's cracking a smile.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's like the charisma that has like carried him around for like fucking however many decades he's been in show business.
There's other nice moments, like there's a moment where they're ragging on Caroline's cooking.
Yeah, which I gotta say is a dick move, because she's already like at her wits.
She's working really hard.
She is
She's trying.
She is tightly wound, and she is like already not on board with this. Like, her kids aren't in the house. She is doing her damnedest. And if you make fun of her fucking cooking, I just wanted to see her like slam the plate and storm out of it.
Yeah, I thought something was going to
What
happen.
a fucking dick
be...
move! Like, we can bond together over ragging on Caroline, who's just hanging on by a thread.
You were saying this earlier, how like there might have been tension that might have spurred Maggie to leave in the first place. Caroline says, like, at a certain point, her and Wade are talking, and Wade's like, if this happened to our other kids, would you be feeling the same way? And Caroline shuts him down and says, don't even go there. Like, I loved Maggie for so long. I loved her like she was my own kid.
Yeah.
It's like an interesting question that, again, the movie doesn't spend enough time with. Because we never got to see what their relationship was before Maggie got bit.
Yeah.
So again, we're only assuming that maybe they had a great relationship. We don't know. Given the fact that Maggie ran away in the first place, we know something must be wrong.
I've got to say then it's probably that she snuck out one time to hang out with her boyfriend. And they had, like, underage teenage sex or whatever.
Possibly.
Again,
just assumptions at this point.
Sure. So, like, actually, like, to that point, at one point, Maggie's old friend Allie comes by, and she invites her to hang out with her and the other kids at, like, fucking Makeout Creek or whatever. Brad's gonna be there. And Trent, sure. And my thinking during this part is, like, you idiot, what are you doing inviting someone infected with, like, the zombie virus? They say, like, she can turn at any moment. What are you doing, like, inviting her to, like, another location where Maggie's just, like, free to, like, come and go as she pleases? You're not really going to want to keep her on lockdown like this. And then they actually, get to the Makeout Creek. And at that point, I'm thinking to myself, like, Jameson, have a heart. This person's, like, on their, like her time is winding down.
She's a kid.
Let her have some fun with her friends. Let her be a kid, and they're dancing.
Also, another zombie boy will be there.
Yeah. And, they're dancing around the bonfire, they're having some drinks, they're shooting off fireworks or whatever, and they're having, like, the chit-chat that kids going through, like, that transitional phase in their lives have.
Are they shooting fireworks, or did you imagine that?
They have sparklers.
I have a feeling, like, if there were fireworks in this movie, just that action alone would be all like, what? Oh, something's happening! Oh, shit!
Yeah, but it's a very heartfelt scene, and I teared up a little bit during those parts. And even Caroline, when Maggie's about to go out, she says,
it's a nice moment.
Hey, I found your old necklace. Make sure you go. Let's have fun. They hug and everything. And it's really sweet. And
that is another sequence that weirdly Arnold is just not in.
Yeah,
Maggie's like, I'm going out with my friends, and Caroline is the only one who's in that scene. Again, I didn't have a point for that. I just thought that was strange.
Yeah, the overprotective, overcautious. Like, she's like, have a great time out there, honey. Have a wonderful time. The scene ends with Allie driving Maggie home the morning after, and she's like, hey, well, let's make plans for next weekend. And it's, oh, sure, I'll be there. You promise? I promise. It's a promise she can't keep. And then they have, like, the hug, and then they have the longer goodbye hug. Like, it's so sweet.
There are good moments. There are good moments in this.
It's beautiful.
But, like, what does Wade think about his zombie daughter going out with their friends? Wade, who has spent 2 weeks searching for her. Does he have any opinions on her leaving the house at this stage? We don't know, because he's just not in this section of the movie for reasons.
Yeah.
We don't know where I guess he was chopping wood for 3 days straight.
Well, because like there's no power, they cut off power, so everything's like run by gas powered generators or like wood burning stove.
And to be fair, they were like ragging on Caroline's food because it was like cold, but they looked like they were eating like cold meat and potatoes. So it's all like, look, Caroline, everyone appreciates what you're doing here, but also like maybe a salad, maybe something that's like traditionally supposed to be served cold.
Hey, they burned all their crops, they got no.
That's
no
true.
produce.
They gotta go. I mean, that's a good shot. That's maybe like the best looking shot of the movie. When
it's on
Arnold,
one of the posters, isn't it?
Yeah, when Arnold sets his field on fire and he just kind of is staring at it, and you're kind of like soaking in the pointlessness of it all, because as an audience member, you know enough about the zombie genre to know that it's not caused by the crops or whatever, but no one in this movie knows that, so he's just destroying the remnants of his livelihood for absolutely no reason.
Oh, Kaz, it's the symbolism of the thing that he worked so hard on to maintain and grow, and he had to destroy it. Much like he's going to have to do with his daughter.
His daughter, it's a metaphor. Did you get it? John Scott 3. We went through 2 other John Scotts to get to this metaphor. We finally got here.
John Scott 3, you cracked the code. But anyways, that part with her friends is the last time I really enjoyed anything in this movie. Because the rest of it is just, okay, now Maggie is starting to turn. There's a scene where she and Caroline are like in the washroom together, like brushing their teeth.
I think she's like fixing her wounds or something, and he smells her.
Yeah, well, she's like, what smells so good? And she's like, oh, I don't smell anything. Maybe your dad's downstairs cooking up some breakfast. He's not. He's like chopping wood, and that's when Karen's like, oh shit, she smells me, and I smell good.
Again, it's just like a very obvious end to the scene that we as an audience got there before the characters do, because again, the movie shows Carolyn going down the stairs, walking into the kitchen, not seeing Arnold there, slowly coming to the realization that she was smelling her, and it's all like, we know, as soon as Maggie went, what smells so good, it's all like, we know she's smelling Carol, she's smelling the flesh.
The movie points out very early that one of the first signs is a heightened sense of smell. So did Caroline not get that memo? Because that would have been like my first tell that, I should probably fucking step back, step away.
Yeah, if they hadn't explained it early on, that actually might be an interesting scene, because if we figure out at the same time that Carolyn figures out that what she's smelling, then...
Breaking news, we've discovered that one of the early signs is a heightened sense of smell.
There's a few shots and sequences in this movie that I just wish were done, like, slightly different. Like Maggie is playing on a swing, and I guess she jumps off and lands on her hand. We don't even really see what happens. She just, gets an additional accident and ends up bending her finger back. Now, is this because of the infection? Would she have had this same injury if she wasn't a zombie? And she just broke the fuck out of her finger? Or is her finger snapping off? Is her finger rotting off? Because we don't, it isn't established how these zombies work, and no other
they never mention any kind of decay or zombie rot. It's a spreading infection. Yeah.
So she just happens to get this severe injury on top of everything else, even though she's lazily going back and forth on the swing set, and she runs inside. She's freaking out. She's bleeding black blood. Caroline is chopping up frozen tomatoes, which is a weird set dressing.
Caroline sees the wound, and she won't she's too freaked out by the side of the broken finger. And, she's unnerved about
the blood, so she's like, I can't help you, I'll call the ambulance. Yeah.
Maggie decides on her own, okay, I'll just chop off my finger. Later on, she says, what's a finger to a lost arm?
Dr. Vern is, sugarcoating things, and then, she's being nice to Maggie, and it's all like, you're gonna be totally fine, have a lollipop. And then Wade is smoking in the alley. He's smoking in the clinic alley that guess, everyone has.
Right outside the free clinic.
And then Vern comes over and says all no, she gonna die.
Yeah.
She's gonna die soon.
That bitch is dead.
Yeah.
You got 3 options. Take her to quarantine, assisted suicide by drug cocktail, which apparently is quite painful and nobody wants to do, or make it quick. Those are his 3 options.
And this is that scene is repeated a little bit later. And that was the big question I had, where Dr. Vern drives to the house near the end of the movie and he gives Arnold the syringe, he gives him the cocktail and everything, and then he explains again, it's all like, this is what they give him in quarantine. It's all like, thanks, Vern, you said that earlier. And then before he leaves, he says, like, do you want my advice? And Arnold says, yeah. And it's all like, use that instead. And he points to the shotgun. And my question is, then why did you give him the worse option? Why did you drive all the way out here to give him the more painful option?
Because
if it's
Arnie's not gonna,
more painful to do it that way.
Because Arnie's not going to want to point a gun at his kid. My question is, why don't they give Maggie any of these options? She doesn't want to go to quarantine. But, hey, kid, do you want to be shot in the head or shot in the arm? Your call.
It's such a grim question. It's such like a grim thing to ask. And, but, you know, like...
She should have a say in that. I mean, the most that they do is, like, as worse and worse as she gets, they're still tucking her into bed at night, you know? Like, they're taking no real precaution. They're not locking the door on her.
There's something to that. There's something to them trying to act like nothing's wrong. Like, nothing's going on. Again, it's, like, weirdly prescient. Like you were saying earlier, why would you invite this zombie girl to go hang out with all of her friends? Like, what are you thinking? Do you want to ask that to, like, any of the number of people who are, like, throwing parties in, like, the midst of a global pandemic right now? People make dumb fucking decisions all the time. So it's like, there's something that this movie is saying about the human condition.
These parties are celebrations of life because we know your time is limited now. So, like, let's make these moments count. But yeah, like to my point of, like, everything kind of comes down to, like, you know, what does Maggie want for herself in these last few moments? Like, there's a part where the good cop and bad cop come to Arnold's place and say, like, you know, it's getting close to that time where, like, we should get her to quarantine.
Jameson is tapping his wrist to indicate the wristwatch that is not there, to indicate that it is getting time. I just thought I should say, because it's not a visual medium, so people won't know that you're adding that color.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought it was important.
Put a shirt on, Kaz. C2 can play at this game.
It's hot! It's hot in here! It's hot in my house!
Theater of the mind, folks. But yeah, like, the cops say, like you gotta take her to quarantine. And then Maggie comes by and says, like, don't hurt my dad. And the good cop is like, all right, Maggie, what do you want us to do? And we'll do it. And she's like, leave us alone. And it's like, so this is your call to make, Maggie. Like, the cops are, all right, that's all I needed to hear. You're fine. We'll leave you to be. Okay, that doesn't seem like the cop's job. But Maggie calls the shots in that regard, but not so much for what she wants for her final moments.
Yeah, and that almost seems like a more interesting movie. Again, get away from the farmhouse.
Yeah.
I get that society has crumbled, but maybe there's, like, an abandoned amusement park or something that you take Maggie to... Oh, I'm just describing the ending of Zombieland. I just realized...
it's the Abigail Breslin.
What? It's the Abigail Breslin universe.
Shit, not here again.
They go to...
That's where she got the bite.
They go to the abandoned amusement park, and there's a bunch of other zombies there, and they escape, and then Abigail Breslin's zombie is shot in the head, and it's Zombieland Abigail Breslin.
Oh, shit.
She's killed by herself.
There's a couple of other families that are taking their kids to the old amusement park because that's where all they had their happy memories. But one of the kids is, like, too far gone compared to all the others, and that's what starts another, like, horror scene, horror outbreak, and there's a mad panic to get out of the amusement. Something exciting.
Something like that. You don't have to go to the amusement park, but go somewhere, and it's futile, and it's pointless, and it's like, maybe have, like, a goal, like a place that you're trying to get to, and then they have to go through, like, all of these things. They have to go through, like, blockades. They have to avoid the government. They have to avoid other zombies, which might be an interesting thing to see in this zombie movie.
I mean, don't they even mention at one point that there are, like, roaming bands of raiders or whatever, because it's the post-apocalypse?
Sure,
like, so many people, like, society's breaking down, let's just be anarchists anyway. There aren't any fucking anarchists that are gonna, you know, storm the farmhouse at one point. So,
here's an idea. Maybe make Maggie, like, an anarchist. Give her, like, some sort of streak. Maybe that's why she left the house. Maybe she left to, like, join the raiders for some reason. You know? How old do you think Maggie is supposed to be?
Oh, it's 17, 18.
Yeah. Well, really, I thought she read kind of as younger. That maybe has something to do with the fact that Abigail Breslin does just kind of look a little young for her age.
Her friend had a license to drive.
Sure.
So let's
say, I almost want to see, like, this story with Maggie, like, a little bit older, you know, and she has, like, a little more autonomy, and it's almost like
college age.
Yeah, it's almost like she's coming home. Again, this movie doesn't explain why Maggie runs away in the first place, so we have to, like, fill in those gaps by ourselves. But, like, if she was, like, 2021, you wouldn't have to explain that. Yeah. She would just be away from her family naturally at that point, and maybe she was, like, trying to do something involved with, like, the thing. Making her a little bit younger actually kind of complicates things a little bit. that the movie isn't really interested in explaining to us why.
Yeah,
it
much
happens.
like, the cause of the zombie outbreak. We don't care. The zombies are a thing in this universe. Maggie ran away. We got, forget about why. The story starts here.
So Caroline eventually leaves.
To be with her other kids.
And also she just can't be around Maggie anymore because she is coming to the realization that...
Well, it's inevitable.
It's inevitable, and Wade is putting it off for as long as he can, and eventually it's just the two of them. The cops show up, Maggie asks them to leave, and they inexplicably say, okay, and then Wade comes into the house, and Maggie's lying on the floor, and she almost attacks him.
Yeah.
And he's able to ask her to come back, and it's very heartbreaking.
Snap out of it!
Well, it's very heartbreaking because Arnold says, not now, not yet.
Yeah.
Arnold is very subdued in this movie. He is really
compared to what we've seen him do in other movies, very much so. And I don't know if that's just because that's what the movie calls for him to do, but it's for his first go at a dramatic acting. Like you were saying, he showed more gravitas in The Villain when he's recounting how he stopped the horses, more natural.
Well, that's leading to a point that I want, because we're going to talk about what we learned over the course of this. So that's something that
I'll save it.
I'll bring it up a little later. But and this movie wraps up with Wade
asleep on his easy chair with the loaded gun, waiting for Maggie to come down, because this is the last night.
This is the last night. He knows Maggie's about to turn.
Yeah, so falls asleep. We think he's fallen asleep on the couch. Maggie comes downstairs in her totally zombified state, gets real close to Arnie. We think he's gonna wake up and shoot her because he's faking being asleep because he tightens his grip on the gun, but he wants to see what happens, and what she winds up doing is giving a little kiss on the forehead because she doesn't smell the flesh because he's a cybernetic organism.
I mean,
living tissue over a metal endoskeleton.
But there was living tissue over top of that, so she would have smelled the flesh anyway.
Sure.
She would have eaten the Terminator. She would have no problem with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, she gives him a little kiss, and then on her own terms, climbs to the roof of the house, jumps off, and...
As she falls, she remembers her mother.
And
then Arnold doesn't have to shoot his daughter, and then credits.
Yeah.
And then the movie is immediately over, and you're kind of left with oh, okay.
Yeah.
So his daughter turned into a zombie. They were very sad about that. And then she killed herself.
Yeah.
That is what happens in Maggie.
Yep. Arnold literally stuck to his guns and let his daughter go out on her own terms.
Do you think he knew she was going up? It looked like in his final moment in the movie, he was steeling himself to go and shoot her. I think that was what his plan was.
Yeah.
And then she took that option off the table for him.
Yeah, because she had a fixation with roofs, I guess.
She has a fixation with roofs, given the fact that we see her on a roof twice.
That's right.
Because she's on a roof.
Once having a heart-to-heart with her little brother.
She goes up to the roof because her little brother's on the roof. I would hardly call that a fixation, Jameson.
I'm joking.
Is that where she got the idea?
Yes, exactly. Because it's set up earlier in the film.
That was foreshadowing?
This is a smart movie. It's setting this shit up.
As they're driving into the thing, you can see the farmhouse for the first time, including the roof, and from there it's all roof! Yeah. Oh, foreshadowing! It's all set up!
Camera lingers on the shingles for a little too long.
For way too longer than it needs to, yeah.
Remember this, audience.
Anything else? We've really covered...
Two things I wanted to bring up. One is that the night before Arnold, says his goodbyes to Maggie, he's smoking a cigar. He's smoking his trademark cigar.
Sure.
Yeah. And also...
The cigar aficionado himself.
Yeah. And also, just as a fucking wink, nod, that was probably unintentional. When the cops go to confront him about, you should really, take Maggie to quarantine now. When they leave, the sheriff says, okay, I'll leave you to be. But hey, I'll be back.
Ray, shut up and listen. I'll be back. Between now and then, you need to figure out what you're going to do.
Now, imagine the thrill of being the actor who gets to say to Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back.
It must have happened. It must have happened Look, this is the issue when your catchphrase is just a common saying that everyone says day in, day out.
The camera wasn't on Arnold's face when he said that, so... What do you think his expression was? Do you think he was rolling his eyes? Or do you think he was trying to make the other actor break? He's doing a goofy face for it?
I mean, he's not making any money on this movie, so
he's got to get something out of this.
Gotta fill this time. I don't know. I just like to imagine it was a regular scene. He said the line, and then the director yelled cut. And then Arnold turned around and he gave one of these. He was like, ah! He gave him like the finger guns.
You're saying it wrong.
Saying it all wrong. Try and sound more robotic.
They spent 5 hours trying to nail that one line because Arnold wasn't happy with it.
We didn't mention that Maggie eats a fox.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, Maggie does... I think that's what makes Carolyn leave, is that...
Oh, yeah, because Maggie busts into the house with, like, blood covering her face and her eyes are all glossy, and it's like, shit, she does look like a crazy zombie at this point.
She has tasted flesh for the first time because she finds a fox caught in a trap, and she tries to free it, but as she's trying to free it, she's all like, no, lunch! And she just chows down on the thing. And then there's, like, a super long sequence where Arnold walks out to where the fox is, and looks at the fox, and then points his gun at the fox, and then shoots the fox. And it's like, fuck, we fucking get it!
There was a lot of build-up to that fox getting stuck in that trap. You know, they keep, like, cutting away to shots of a fox, like, wandering through the woods.
I wrote down, what does the fox symbolize?
I wrote that too. But I kept thinking, oh my god, is this going to be like a fucking Fox in the hen house sort of thing because Maggie is, she is the zombie that's going to start attacking the family? Whatever. What the fuck ever.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so I guess now we might as well ask the question, does this movie have a certain something, or is it just a whole lot of nothing?
Both.
You could be generous and say that there's a little something.
Yeah.
Maybe there's like a third category to this whole thing where it's like, it's got like moments of something, but I'm leaning more, and not to be rude, it's not like, okay, this movie isn't a whole lot of nothing, but it's...
A whole lot of nothing happened.
It is nothing. I would err more towards the side that this is a nothing movie. Just it's a new category of nothing movie that I think we're realizing, where it's like movies that you watch and they really have no effect on you whatsoever, but you don't hate them.
No, I think we hit the nail on the head when we said this would be a decent short film.
Yes.
Because I think this is a story that would get told anyways, eventually. I think it's just told in a very dull way. And I think Arnold Schwarzenegger was the worst choice for something like this, or at least an unnecessary
It was an interesting
conclusion.
Yeah, it was an interesting decision to cast him in this, but he is unfortunately miscast. Even though he is trying, it's just not really his strong suit.
But I mean, hell, if Arnold Schwarzenegger came to me and said, like, hey, I'll do your movie for free, fucking, like, we're in. We're in business, Arnie. Like, sure, I'll, like, do whatever the fuck you want. You're gonna work for me for free? Sure. You can have any goddamn role you please.
So, we're at the end. We're at the end.
What an exclamation point to end this trilogy on.
Yeah, we're at the end of our Arnold Schwarzenegger trilogy, so now comes the point where we ask ourselves, what did we learn? Jameson, what did you learn over the course of watching these 3 Arnold Schwarzenegger nothing movies?
I learned that small amounts of Arnold doing what he's good at is a lot better than seeing him try to be in the majority of a movie where he's trying something that he's unfamiliar with.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah. I think I learned that despite the reputation that he had over the course of his popularity at the height of his career, Arnold was a much better actor than we gave him credit for. He always kind of sticks out, but he always kind of makes that work for him. And I'm remembering one-liners and moments he has in other movies that have sort of a believability to them. There's a line in True Lies when Jamie Lee Curtis finds out that Arnold has been a secret agent this entire time, and she's kind of freaking out, and they're both tied up, and she says, you go around and you kill people, and Arnold takes a minute, and he takes like a beat, and then he says, yeah, but they were all bad. And, like, that's good delivery, and I don't think anyone, like, ever gives him credit for, like, you believe that he believes that, and you believe that that's something that character would say in that time. Ironically, I'm gonna go back to the villain again. Ironically, I said this in the last episode, there is a naturalism to the way he speaks, and just kind of like a tossed-off rhythm that he has when he's recounting stuff that happens to him. As time goes on, and ironically, in this movie, where he's playing a more grounded, relatable human being, he is trying to do the acting that everyone else was doing at the beginning of his career. And I actually think I would like to see an Arnold that is remembering the early moments of his career a little bit more. Like I like
leaning
to see
leaning more into his instincts.
Yeah.
Back then,
the best moments in this movie are when he's just talking to Maggie
when it seems like he's being himself.
Yes, absolutely.
He has this like really good ability to understand the material and what the movie needs from him. You know, because he is like that level of actor where he himself is like he's bigger than the role himself. It's similar to Robin Williams. It doesn't really matter what the name of his character is or what his character is doing. It's Robin Williams, like through and throughout. You know, when he's being like his manic self or he's being his like more toned down self, you know this is just how he is outside of acting. And you don't care if it's like a solid performance or not. You are drawn to that.
Maybe not so much in this movie.
No, not
like I won't like watching this. I wouldn't say that this is a successful performance from him, just because the movie doesn't give him a ton to work with, and he's not really doing anything.
Well, he's trying something new, something that he's never really done before, and it's just.
And for the record, I would like to see him try more of this.
Okay,
I'm a little disappointed that his next movie is like the jokey YouTube movie, and then presumably sequels to Conan and Twins or whatever. So like, I would like to see more interesting takes on this. This wasn't terribly successful. Aftermath wasn't terribly successful. I think he got a little depressed that those didn't take off because I think he was trying something in that that didn't quite fly for him.
You know, kudos to him for at least giving it a shot.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if he's just like bored of doing the same thing over and over again, but Arnie, you're so good at it. I hate to say that, but you know, you have nothing to be ashamed of or to apologize for.
I don't think he's ashamed, and I don't think he has anything to apologize for anyway. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger is doing just fine. He's a rich fucking man, and he will continue to do whatever he feels like whenever he feels like it. So, the only other thing that I want to say that I learned over the course of this is that I'm quite a fan of Jason Fleming, and he actually seems to pop up a lot more than I thought he would. Last week I was watching a movie that I'd never seen before, Deep Rising. You ever see that?
Nope.
Bunch of like, it's like a movie in the vein of From Dusk Till Dawn, where it's about one thing, and then an hour into it, it becomes a monster movie.
Okay.
So it's about like a bunch of like terrorists who are gonna rob a cruise ship, and then they get on the cruise ship, and then they're basically attacked by Cthulhu.
Wonderful.
It's wild, and he plays one of the goons, and I'm all like, oh, Jason Fleming. And then the next night, I went out on a date, to the movies. We went to see the 355, that new action movie with all the ladies in it and everything. Okay. He's the bad guy in that too, so he's like all over the place. So like,
good for him.
Yeah.
Jonathan Green, good for
Jonathan Green.
I mean, if we're gonna do like, you know, a recap of like what we learned for every movie that we've covered, we probably should have been doing that at the ends of
possibly, yeah.
Yeah. I learned there's a real dragon in China somewhere.
That's what tea's made out of. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the last thing I want to say. Arnold Schwarzenegger, not as bad an actor as everyone gives him credit for. Certainly did not deserve to be nominated for his role in Iron Mask for Worst Supporting Actor at the 2020 Razzie Awards. He lost, of course, to Rudy Giuliani in Borat. Fuck those guys.
I mean, fuck the Razzies,
I fucking hate the Razzies. Oh my god, they're just the worst, yeah.
But you know what I have a lot of respect for? The actors that show up to the Razzies to accept the awards.
Yeah.
I like seeing that. That's
only been like a couple of times, but like no one even wants to do that anymore because the Razzies have just gotten so fucking toxic and misogynistic that...
Have they?
Oh, they've always been misogynist. The Razzies hate women.
Oh, I never watched it, but I thought it was like one of those, you know, super campy kind of things where like a lot of the presenters they're in character or something. Like it's
not a show that you can watch. It's basically just a thing that happens in like a hall. It's not even that anymore because it's just like all online shit.
I thought it was sort of like a cheesy burlesque kind of thing.
If they have filmed it, they've never made it watchable for anyone to see outside of clips and stuff. And they're getting like weirdly political. Like if there's like a political documentary, they'll always give like worst actor to Donald Trump, and it's all like, look, let's make fun of that guy, sure, but like also, aren't you supposed to be like honoring bad movies? I don't know.
Neutrality or something.
Anyway,
I don't know. Fuck
it. We're gonna close the book on Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that means this trilogy is wrapping up. Now, this is exciting because this would be the part of the show where we bring out our jar of names. I think I mentioned...
Yeah, we never got around to getting that big bingo spinner.
I think I mentioned in their introduction we wanted to get like a bingo spinner. I think we're just going to get like a jar or something. We're just going to put some names in it. We're going to
You're going to listen to my suggestion? Good.
For once, yes. For once, Jameson had a good idea, and I'm going to take that idea. For once! But this is the part where we would do that, but we're not going to do that for this one because we have already picked who our next trilogy is going to be, much like how we're doing a trilogy on Arnold Schwarzenegger because there was a movie that I really wanted to do an episode on. Mm-hmm. We were picking an actor because there was a movie Jameson really wants to do a episode on. I think that movie should be the second movie.
Sure.
That we do in the trilogy.
Yeah. I just want to say that it has been a movie that from the early days of the podcast I wanted to talk about. Because when you said, oh, here, for the fuck is this? We're going to cover unheard of or forgotten films with some famous people. And I'm like, I got a great idea. And I think he said I've seen it once before and yeah, it's not that great. I figured
hey, don't spoil the episode for people.
I mean, hey, it's No the Telephone, but...
Listen to our previous episode on the telephone.
It's something that I've wanted to cover for a damn long time.
Anyway, that's a big thing. That's not going to be the next episode. That's going to be the episode after the episode. I don't think we've decided on what the first movie is going to be. So the movie, TBA, but let's just announce right here, our next trilogy will be on...
Mark Hamill.
Mm-hmm. Luke Skywalker himself. Mm-hmm. A really interesting career to talk about. Mm-hmm. Very different from Arnold Schwarzenegger's career.
Very.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, someone who has
been... they've been in showbiz, I think Mark Hamill's been in showbiz a little bit longer, but they've certainly, they're just actors who have stood the test of time, I'd say. They're both still working, but while Arnold's star has really gone onto the fucking stratosphere, Mark Hamill sort of stayed a little ground level for a while with huge spikes that everyone's familiar with, but also flies under the radar.
The interesting thing about Mark Hamill is that he has two different careers. He has two different filmographies.
Yeah.
And he has these two iconic performances in both of them at the top. And then for the voice acting thing, I mean, he's one of the most prolific voice actors currently working right now. Name a cartoon, and there's a chance Mark Hamill did one episode.
Hey, you know what? Let's save it.
We're going to save it. We're going to save all this stuff, yeah. But Mark Hamill's coming up next. But that was our episode on Maggie from 2015, directed by Henry Hobson. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow us on all the social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram. Are we on Twitter yet? Nothing Movies?
I mean, I changed the name of the Twitter account, but I think I'm going to have to make a new one for Nothing Movies.
Okay. Because by the time you listen to this...
We'll have a new one.
We will have the social media up for all of the things. It will be up. If you enjoyed listening to us talk, please listen to all of our back catalog of our previous podcasts.
They're much better than this one. I swear.
It's basically the same show as this, just with a looser format. We don't really talk about one actor. It's just us talking about whatever movies we want to talk about. If you're listening to us on Spotify and you want kind of a more visual element, you can check us up on YouTube because Jameson uploads videos of all of these podcasts with a more visual element. If you're watching that right now and you're watching this on YouTube and you're just all I want to hear this on the go, and you don't have YouTube Premium, you can download Spotify. Spotify and YouTube, two companies that have they're great and have never done anything controversial.
YouTube
have
Premium?
Great. Absolutely no one.
Yeah, sure. There I go, biting the hand that feeds. Well, whatever. They're not paying us.
Not yet.
Yeah, but thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for listening. This was Nothing Movies. I'm Kaz.
That's what he said, and I'm Jameson.
And hasta la vista, baby.
We'll be back.